This is a special council meeting 23-18. It's a public hearing, and I'd like to call that meeting to order. We call upon Mr. Longfellow to lead us in our national anthem. Joel?
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Car ton bras se porte l'épée, il se porte la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you very much, Joel. We appreciate that once again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Clerk, I guess at this time I entertain a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Demery. All those in favor? It's carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? There is none indicated, and we shall record that. Again, this is a public hearing under the Planning Act. Mr. Aquilina, or Colin, Mr. Osh is going to take it this evening. Mr. Osh?
Thank you, Mayor Maloney, Council. So tonight we have a public meeting, public hearing under the Planning Act. Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Liu, are you controlling the mouse? Are you controlling PowerPoint, or should I grab?
I am not. I can.
Thank you. All right, so sorry about that. So the purpose of the meeting tonight is pursuant to section 34 of the Planning Act, is to consider an application submitted by agent Brian Lambie on behalf of the owner Andy Veenstra Farms Limited for lands legally known as part of Lot 10, Concession 2, formerly in the township of Humberstone, now in the city of Port Colborne, regional municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 1937 Brookfield Road. The application for zoning bylaw amendment proposes to change the zoning from agricultural to agricultural purposes only and agricultural residential. The zoning bylaw amendment is being sought to satisfy anticipated conditions for a farm consolidation severance. The method of notice of public meeting was administered in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act as amended and Section 5 of Ontario Regulation 545/06. The notice of public meeting was mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the property on August 31st, 2018, and a notice was posted on the city's website on August 31st, 2018. A sign was posted on the property by September 4th, 2018. Something new, the Planning Department hosted a public open house for this application on September 17th. Notice of the public open house was included on the notice of public meeting. As of the date of this meeting, staff have not received any written comments from members of the public. Only one agency has provided comment, and that is the regional municipality of Niagara, which has said in short that regional planning and development staff have no objection to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment from a provincial or regional perspective, and the regional staff recommend that the amending zoning bylaw should not be passed until the completion of the future severance application. So, provide an explanation of the procedure to be followed tonight. The procedure to be followed this evening will be to present Department of Planning and Development Report 2018-131, hearing any comments from the applicant, receive questions of clarification from council to the applicant or planning staff, open the meeting to the public for comments and questions, announce the requirements under the Planning Act for written notice of passage of the proposed official plan, of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and a brief explanation of future meetings regarding the application. So at this time, I'd like to present Planning and Development Report 2018-131. So location and context, the property is located at 1937 Brookfield Road at the corner of Brookfield Road and 2nd Concession. Property currently has a single detached dwelling with several farm buildings. Most of the land is under cultivation. To the north is agricultural land. To the east is agricultural land with a few residences. To the south is agricultural land with some residential dwellings. And to the west is, again, agricultural land with some residential dwellings. City of Port Colborne official plan designates the property as agricultural. Lands designated agricultural are prime agricultural areas as defined by a provincial policy statement and as identified on the agricultural land-based map of the regional policy plan and are used primarily for agricultural purposes. The current zoning bylaw 6575-30-18 zones the property agricultural, which permits the following uses, which includes agricultural activities, residential uses, conservation uses, and some limited residential development. The application for zoning bylaw amendment proposes to change the zoning to agricultural purposes only and agricultural residential. Agricultural purposes only permits agricultural uses, conservation uses, and uses, structures, and buildings accessory thereto, including greenhouses. Agricultural residential permits residential dwellings, single detached, and uses, structures, and buildings accessory thereto. And again, the purpose of this application is for to comply with satisfy the conditions of a future farm consolidation severance, which has been filed for, and that is application B12-18-PC. So at this time, Your Worship, I would like to invite the applicant to provide comment should he have any.
Mr. Lamy, on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Pretty straightforward application. My client purchased the farm at 1937 Brookfield Road. He's a full-time farmer and already has a principal residence, so the residence at this property is surplus to him. We've applied for a severance, and that hearing will be scheduled on October the 10th. Condition of that severance will be a rezoning of the property. So we're proposing to rezone the vacant land to agricultural purposes only, which will prevent any future dwellings on that parcel, and rezone the home to residential agricultural, which will only allow a residence on that parcel. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. If members have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Members of council, any questions to Mr. Lambie? Mr. Bonner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Brian. And just because we're live streaming this and people may be watching that have never, are wondering, is this something that is odd or whatever? This is something that we do occasionally, and it makes good sense for the farmer. I think you've been involved in a few of these, presenting to council, so it isn't out of the norm. It's just something we have to go through to get it done. Would you say that's a...
Yes, Councillor Bodner, this is specifically allowed under your official plan policies.
Right.
When a farmer, a full-time farmer, buys another farm, he has two homes. He doesn't need to live in two homes, so the policy allows us to sever off the surplus home.
Any other questions? There being none, thank you, Mr. Lambie.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Are there any questions or oral presentations from members of the public? Are there any questions or oral presentations from members of the public? One more time, are there any questions or oral presentations from members of the public? And there, it appears there are none. Mr. Osh?
Thank you, Your Worship, and at this time I'd like to ask through you, Council, if there's any questions of clarification for myself.
Go ahead, Mrs. Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Evan. Evan, when you had your public meeting, were there like numerous people beating down the door to listen to or ask questions of you or Mr. Lambie that day at the public meeting? That's just so I would know for my own clarification purposes.
Through you, Mayor Maloney, to Councillor Kenny, it afforded Brian Lambie and I a great opportunity to have a pleasant conversation, uninterrupted. There's no members of the public present, but it's a recommendation under the under provincial legislation and best practices to have open houses with zoning bylaw amendments. Fortunately, we were able to go through a live drill with a rather controversial zoning bylaw amendment. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Councillor Butters, did I see your hand up?
No, sir.
Are there any other questions of Mr. Osh from members of council? There being none, Mr. Osh, what are the next steps?
All right, thank you, Your Worship. So, so just before we steer away from the public meeting portion, I'd just like to read the following statement. I'm obliged to read the following statement. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before a decision on a proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed by council, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the City of Port Colborne to the local planning appeal tribunal. As well, if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before a decision on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed by council, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there is reasonable grounds to do so. So any interested members of the public, I have a form. We usually put it on the table at the back. Unfortunately, we can't tonight. It is a sign-in sheet for members of the public to request notice of passing should this zoning bylaw pass in the future. So we already went through the call for oral presentations or questions by the public. There were none at the time, so I will move on to the following. If you wish to be notified of the approval of the zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the clerk. Only those persons and public bodies that give the clerk a written request for the notice of the adoption and passing of a zoning bylaw amendment will be given notice. So this concludes the public hearing under the Planning Act. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment will be placed on council's agenda at a future meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Osh.
Thank you.
There appears nothing further, then we call for a motion for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Kenny, second by Councillor Desmarais. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. The meeting is now adjourned. If we could now move on to the regular meeting of the Committee of a Whole. Call that meeting to order. It's meeting number 19-18, held today, Monday, September 24th. And are there any addendum or delegation items, Madam Clerk?
No, there are not.
I entertain a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Desmarais. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll declare a disclosure of interest with item number 2, as my brother has a store that sells fireworks. I have a store that could in the future do that, so I won't be voting on that.
Item number 2.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other conflicts? There being none, call for adoption of minutes of the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole 18-18 held on September 10th, 2018. Call for a motion to Councillor Kenny, second to Councillor Demery. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Move on to item number 6, a determination of items requiring separate discussion. Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 1, please.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Dash?
I'll do item 2 for the conflict.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Items 7 and 9.
7 and 9? Thank you. Anyone else? I'd call for a motion to approve those items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councillor Dance, seconded by Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. At this time, we have several presentations. And the first of these is for myself. I wonder if we could, that's a presentation to a young lady, but just let me get this plaque down here. I wonder, Mr. Horvath, would you like to join me up here?
Microphone.
And you have another cousin with you, I'm not sure. You're my friend, Tonight we're presenting the Isidore Sponder Memorial Trophy. And growing up in Port Colborne, Isidore began swimming at the age of 15 in either Lake Erie or the Welland Canal, or both, as most children of his age did at that time. Between 1927 and 1933, Isidore competed against such notable swimming greats as Marvin Nelson and Gianni Gambi. During the era when the Canadian National Exhibition Marathon swim was held, Mr. Sponder was one of the premier world marathoners, and he finished in the top 3 4 times. Good friend Ernie Marsh stated about Mr. Sponder, he was quite a swimmer. He tried his best and brought considerable recognition to Port Colborne. He passed away in December of 1986 at the age of 74. In 1993, the Centennial Pool lift for handicapped swimmers was dedicated to the citizens of Port Colborne by the Sponder family. With the decommissioning of Centennial Pool and building of the Valet Health and Wellness Center, the city, alongside of Isidore's family, wanted to ensure that his memory lived on in Port Colborne. In addition to his name on a donor wall at the Valet's Health and Wellness Center, the city has created the Isidore Sponder Memorial Trophy to be presented annually to a member of the Port Colborne Piranha swim team. The recipient is to mirror the traits of Isidore Sponder possessed in the water, a competitive spirit, dedicated to the sport, and always giving 110%, win or lose. We're fortunate tonight to have 2 members of Isidore's family here with us, and I would like to introduce his nephew and former Port Colborne resident, Fred Horvath, and his other nephew, John Shaw, to say a few words. Mr. Shaw has declined, so Fred, would you care to say a few words for us?
Well, I don't want to say this, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity, the invitation, and to members of council, thank you again for this opportunity to recognize my uncle. I've been doing a lot of work since last time in terms of finding out more about Isidore Sponder. And I have some pictures that I'm going to be sending to the mayor's office of 1927, 1929, and 1930. of the marathon swims. And in 1929, in the Toronto Daily Star, it says, everybody wants to go down to the waterfront to see these swimmers. There'll be tens of thousands of people, and half of them will never get to see the race because so many people. Back in 1929, the prize was $25,000 to win. This was big things. And the other side says, if you're too short, don't even bother going down. This was an ad in the Daily Star. So I have to also tell you, Mr. Mayor, that my cousin and I, John Shaw, who's here, we spent the last 2 hours driving through Port Colborne and realized why I love this place, why I still call it home. But we went to Nickel Beach because we have great memories of that. We went down Tennessee. We went to Schofields Marina. I may be dating myself. Maybe everybody's too young to probably remember Schofield Marina. We went down Algon Street because one of my nephews still lived there. He's never home when I come, or he's hiding when I get there, I'm not sure. But Port Colborne looked fantastic today to me. And certainly it's the work you guys have done. Like when I see West Street, you know, growing up as a kid, we were told never to go to West Street. It was bad. And now you just can't go. But anyway, I just want to compliment you on the work you do and how great Port Colborne is. But again, for the Isidore Sponder family, we're so pleased about this. And it was funny, last year I had a connection to the people that was the lucky recipient, and I believe I have a connection to the people who are winning it this year. If it's the Sismars from Hampton Street in Port Colborne, no? No, that's my grandfather. So there is a connection, so I know the grandfather, so we're very pleased. So anyways, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Fred, there's always room for a retiree to come back home.
I'll tell you, we looked at some real estate today, I'll tell you, some beautiful homes, but...
And thank you for announcing the name of the recipient. That was supposed to be my hit. Anyway, I wonder if Jen Lauer could come forward too. Jen is the coach of the Piranha swim team, or she should be here. And I'm still pleased to announce that the recipient of the inaugural Isidore Sponder Memorial Trophy goes to Jessica Sismar. Jessica is 11 years old and has been participating in the Piranha swim team and taking the swim stroke improvement classes for 2 years. Jessica has loved the water since she was a baby and is looking forward to one day being a lifeguard. That's an admirable trait, that's for sure. We have this trophy, which will remain on display at the Valet Health and Wellness Center, engraved with your name, and we have a plaque for you to receive as well. So I'll present the trophy that stays at the Valet Center to you for a brief moment, and perhaps lots of pictures from Mom and Dad. And at the same time, if I can present this trophy to Jessica Sismar, recipient of the City of Port Colborne Isidore Sponder Memorial Trophy for 2018, and recognizing your competitive spirit and dedication to the spirit of swimming. Sport of swimming. Okay, maybe your coach could take it. I don't suppose you'd like to say anything. Oh. Would members of the Sismar family come forward? Let's get the whole family. It was a big deal. Fred, come on up here too. Jen?
In front of the wheel. There's a lot more room. Less people are ducking.
Good. Thank you.
One guy's gonna conk his head.
I'll let you hold that for a little while, but don't take it all.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate it.
Okay, great. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you. I was asking about my brother, he passed away this year.
Bob did?
Yeah, just, I went to see him and he had 6 months to 2 years, he died 2 days. So, yeah.
Thanks for the And the final presentations are to be made by Councillor B. Kenny to the community organizations who are recipients of the, what it used to be called, the Hydro Grants. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're here this evening, ladies and gentlemen, to present several community grants to nonprofit organizations who serve the residents of the city of Port Colborne. This committee is comprised of 3 members of council, which is myself, Councillor Angie Demery, and the Mayor, John Maloney, along with 2 members of the public, which right now is Gary Bruno and Brenda Hames. For 2018, Council set aside a maximum of $30,000 to be distributed among the applicants, and this is the first round of applicants. In January, we presented 6 grants totaling $12,720, and the second round of grants, which we're presenting tonight, there are 3, and those total $8,250. So the first group that comes up are members of Community Living, Port Colborne and Wainfleet. So if you'd come forward, that would be great. I see you there. Community Living, Port Colborne, Wainfleet are using their grant of $4,500 to offer a 6-week summer employment training program for high school students with intellectual disabilities by hiring 3 job support workers. So Dan Tonello and Rita Smith are here to receive their check, and I'll ask them to say a few words.
Thank you very much. This is amazing. This will definitely help run, like we said, a summer work program for some of the kids that we support in high school. So thank you. This is awesome. Dan?
Mayor Maloney and members of Port Colborne City Council. As you just heard, my name is Dan Tonello. I'm a board member from Community Living Port Colborne and Wainfleet. On behalf of the board of directors, I would like to thank you for the gracious donation from the Port Colborne Fund. Community Living does not receive any funding from the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services for children and youth programs. In order to operate our children's program, we rely primarily on grants. Your contribution will provide additional support to young people that require assistance in finding and maintaining employment. We truly appreciate the generous donations that the Port Colborne Fund has contributed to Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet in the past several years. We certainly could not provide all the wonderful children's programs without your financial assistance. Thank you for inspiring possibilities in a community where everyone belongs. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Dan. Well said, Dan. Well said. The second grant is going to the Ymca of Niagara, and I see her there. Oh, no. And their grant is for $2,000, and it's to support their youth action program at DeWitt Carter Public School. These funds will provide the school program with staffing as well as having access to office supplies, program supplies, gym equipment, and on-site phone for the school year 2018-2019. And Lori Brady is here to receive the check.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you very much. This generous grant will allow us to continue the program happening at DeWitt Carter. Last year we saw 32 children on a regular basis. Well, I say children, they're youth, 10 to 14, that can participate in mainly physical activity, but also make relationships, build relationships with the role models that go every week. So it's a free program, and with your generous grant, we can keep it free for the youth in Port Colborne. So thank you. We appreciate your support.
And our final check this evening is going to the Friends of the Port Colborne Lighthouse. Their grant of $1,750 is to assist in the cost of insurance to provide the tours to the lighthouses during Canal days. And if you've never taken this tour, make it a point to do it next year. You're going to surely enjoy it. So I'd call somebody up, Mr. Meyer or Mr. Rossi.
Mayor, councilors, and the committee, on behalf of the Friends of the Port Colborne Lighthouses, I appreciate this. We had a banner year this year. The weather was great. I know some of you took the tour. Just the boat ride out there is just fascinating to a lot of people. We've had some people that have come back for 5 years in a row to take the tour. As you know, we only have 4 days during the canal days to utilize the lighthouses for the public. And last year, I think there were a couple of weather issues where we were only allowed to go, I think we lost a day and a half or something. And all the funds that we generated during that almost offset the insurance costs for the liability, which is required by the Seaway and Department of Oceans and Fisheries. I appreciate the support we've gotten from the town and certainly the support for the finances for the insurance. Thank you very much.
So anybody out there listening, these grants are available to all nonprofit organizations who serve the residents of Port Colborne, and the first round of applications will be received in January 2019. So please submit your applications, fill out the paperwork, and be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kenny. There are no delegations this evening, so I'll move on to the mayor's report. Valet, it was their 100th anniversary. Another milestone was reached in the city, as Valet, formerly Ymca, celebrated their 100th anniversary of operations in Port Colborne. They opened their refinery to the public, giving tours of the Colborne and nickel plants. It was a great opportunity for the community to see firsthand the operation that has employed generations of our residents. It was an opportunity also for retirees to return to Port Colborne and catch a glimpse of how the plant has changed and updated over the years. A comment in the press was it was like a homecoming, and that was certainly the atmosphere there, that a lot of pride by the retirees as well as the current staff. And they're very, very proud of what they have there at, I was going to say Ymca, at Valet these days. And the second announcement I have is announcing the retirement today of our Deputy Fire Chief, Mike Bendia. Mike, could you come forward, please? Mike, that's my proud, how do I say it? Anyway, I'm really proud of you. Right. It's my duty as mayor to express the gratitude of the Port Colborne City Council and our residents for your commitment over the past 37 years as a firefighter for our community. You climbed the ranks of both the volunteer department and the full-time department, eventually reaching the rank of Deputy Fire Chief, which you have held for the last 5 years. Serving our citizens is something you did every day, at any hour, in any weather, and we are grateful to you. You have given your heart and soul to our community in so many ways, most recently as chairman of the Board of Directors of Port Cares. You are more than just a firefighter for this community. Mike, you've made the lives of the residents of Port Colborne safer and more secure because you care. Mike, enjoy your retirement. You've earned it, you deserve it. Congratulations. And at this time, I'd like to present, one more time, this plaque commemorating your 37 years of dedicated and outstanding service to the city of Port Colborne. Thank you. Thank you, sir. It's going to be hard to take that uniform off for the last time, I would think.
I'm thinking this is one of the last times. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Would appear that we don't have a regional councilor's report tonight. Next item on the agenda is councilor's items. Any issues? Mr. Elliott? Mr. Bodnar? Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Mayor. I had a call from a gentleman that has just recently built a house on Schofield, and he was inquiring as to whether or not we were going to landscape the area in front of the houses, kind of the boulevard in between the sidewalk and the roadway on the, get the area right, on the east side, on the west side of Schofield. If you take a walk down in between the sidewalk and the road, it's grassed area. And when I drove by tonight, the sidewalk hasn't been completely installed on Schofield in front of the new builds where CMT was. And the question was whether or not we were going to landscape that from the city's perspective, or was that a requirement of builders? It is quite a mess. There's a bunch of stone and whatnot.
Mr. Aquilino?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Elliott, no discussion on the CMT lots spoke to the city ever putting any sort of improvements between the paved road and the sidewalk. So I would defer to Chris Lee if there was anything dealing with the replacement that would actually see some improvements. Only requirement was when there was building going on that we look to preserve the mature trees on that property.
Mr. Lee, do you have a comment?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Elliott. With regards to the boulevard specific, if they were granular right now, those would be maintained. If they were grass, they would simply be grass to the edge of the existing pavement. So if they were damaged within the process of building, if there was damages done to an existing, say a grassed area, and that was damaged by the builder at the time of the building, then we would go back with the builder and work out some sort of a scenario with them. If it was something that just needed general maintenance, then we would do that through our operations budgets.
Okay. The inquiry just wanted to know if we could, if we would look at it from a grass perspective or look at it as asphalting it. And when you take a look at the one side, that's the older homes. It looks quite nice because it's all well kept and whatnot. And then the side where the new homes are, obviously because construction has taken place, it's a little untidy and unkept. But I was just wondering if we would take a look at that and see if there's anything we could do just to tidy it up. It's our property because it's within the road allowance, and I was just wondering if there's anything that we would do to enhance the look of it, just for continuity in the entire subdivision.
Through you, Mr. Mayor to Councilor Elliott. We can definitely have a look at that. We'll have staff have a site visit to see if there's any specific areas that need addressing. Making certain that we don't cause any issues with the drainage. I know there's some catch basins in that area, so we want to make certain that that is still functioning. That being said, that'll be part of their examination of it.
Okay. Thank you. And I got one other item. And Chris, I'll ask you because I'll probably ask you until it's done every meeting. The crosswalk, the corner of Catherine and Clarence. When?
To you, Mr. Mayor to Councilor Elliott. There's a staff meeting, or not a staff meeting, but a contractors meeting tomorrow with all of the agencies involved and the contractor to sort out the logistics on who's showing when and where and why, when they're going to happen. We hope that work will proceed over the next few weeks and we will finalize it.
Firm date of completion? give or take? Hopefully.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Elliott, we will try to complete this, and you want me to give you a firm date, I will say that the paint should be dry before the end of October.
I'll hold you to that.
I know you will.
Thank you.
Mr.
No,
Elliott?
that's all.
Mr. Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Chris, I guess. Chris, received the concern from somebody living on 3rd Concession as to the amount of heavy trucks that are going down there. I know 2nd Concession is built to handle heavy trucks. My other question is, I don't think 3rd Concession is, but it isn't signed, I don't believe, to say that, you know, like a lot of other roads are signed for no heavy trucks. Can you comment on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodnar, is there a specific section on 3rd Concession, like between which concession roads are we referring to?
Probably between Brookfield and West. So turning off in Brookfield.
So between Brookfield and Wilhelm, heading toward the regional road. At this point, there are no signs there. It hasn't been designated as a non-truck route.
Do you think that road will handle the heavy trucks, or? I'm just looking at a concern. I know they have the option of going down 2nd. I believe they may be coming from a business that does sandblasting down in that area. So I don't know. I don't know what the options are, whether to direct them to 2nd Concession. But if you think the road will handle it, then it's a non-issue. But they were some very, very, very large vehicles.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodnar. That section of road definitely is not built to the same standards as you referred to on 2nd Concession. But that being said, we'll have to have a look at that and see what the traffic volumes are currently, what's really happening, what the source of that truck traffic is, and then maybe have a discussion with the truckers themselves or the owners that are causing and then we can report back and give you some summation on what we found out.
Just before I leave Chris and go on to Ashley, I didn't see the lines painted yet at Centennial Park. I know, can you give us an idea what's going on with that? The road hash marks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodnar. As I had stated in the last meeting, staff has been working on the school guard crossing, the piano keys, as you put it. They're working their way out through the country. They'll be doing the crossings for the trails as well. And as they go through, working their way to the east, that is definitely on their schedule.
Go ahead, Ms. Bond.
Mr. Mayor, through you to Ashley. Ashley, we've had a summer go by with Centennial Park being a little busier than normal, with us pushing people there from Pleasant Beach. I wondered whether you could check with staff just to see if everything went well. Reports from neighbors are the parking lot was full on quite a number of days. Just wondered whether we could have a, you know, just your thoughts on that for the next meeting or subsequent meeting. Just to see if there's any improvements we have to do there for next year or whatever. Just let us know whether it worked or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bodnar. Any further questions? Councillor Butters, then Councillor Kenny, and Councillor Demeray. Go ahead, Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess what I would really like to see is a report from staff come back to this council. I'm hoping sometime even into the new year, early in the new year, regarding parking at Pleasant Beach. And I think that we've gotten to a point now where it needs to be consistent with other ends of road allowances, and there's quite a few that there is no parking on, if not most of them. And we don't have the restaurant. The restaurant is not going to be there anymore. So I think it could be time that we looked at that for that end of Pleasant Beach Road as a no parking all the way through. Then our bylaw can come in. The towway zones were pretty effective. I think that there's been lots of improvement, and I think it needs to be tweaked a little more. But I think that a report back from staff is something that we really should be having a look at. And then the other part of it is, I know that through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Louis, we talked about signage, and you said you wanted to kind of look at it as an overall thing under parks master plan. But Pleasant Beach really isn't a park, and so I guess I need some more clarification from you on how that is included, or whether it even should be, because we've gone a long time without the needed signage to direct people to the beaches where we want them to go. So if you could comment on that, and if we could have that report come back regarding making that area no parking.
Sure, through your worship to Councillor Butters, and I'll leave, I guess, the direction for a staff report to bylaw staff through the director of the department to arrange for a few months from now, or I guess in the new year you mentioned. I'll try to clarify my remarks and maybe make myself a little bit, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I was talking about wayfinding signs, and I guess what I meant was I meant it in the context of directing people to the beaches that we want them to be at. So not so much signs on Pleasant Beach Road specifically, but signs throughout the city that will get our beachgoers, local and visitors, to Centennial Park and to Nickel Beach, which is where we want them to be. One of the problem I was alluding to is one of sign overload. So for example, I often see people blocking intersections right beside a sign that says do not block intersection. And I think there are so many signs in some areas of the city that we just ignore them all. And they don't actually provide value to the people who are using them. But I think there must be, maybe I'm not the person to decide, and maybe the Recreation Master Plan consultant is the person or agency to recommend a way of distinguishing our assets. So take, for example, the Bruce Trail. Hikers will know that a white mark on a tree or a post is a sign that you're on the Bruce Trail. Maybe there's a mark that will get people to Nickel Beach. Maybe there's a mark that will get them to the soccer fields or the baseball diamonds or Centennial that was, excuse me, can be consistently applied throughout the city and won't contribute to the sign overload. So that's the kind of creative solution I'd like to see the consultants that eventually are successful in undertaking the Recreation Master Plan come forward to us. We will need traditional signs. We will need signs that say don't park here, or not a public beach, or here's the public beach. But I think we also need something that rises above what the city currently has and really provides value to the residents and the visitors and the people who are trying to administer, our parks and facilities.
Thank you.
Thank you for the response. So we can count on a report coming back regarding the parking at Pleasant Beach? Okay, and the sign, I just don't want it to fall off the radar, because, I'm not going to be sitting in this seat in a few weeks' time, and it's just been one of those things where I'd like to see it get to the final end result of a really true improvement in that area. And I know this council's been very supportive of that as well. So thank you for your answer.
Mrs. Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Chris. Chris, just a couple of things. The first would be on Clarence Street, where we had to dig in there for the Wendy's restaurant that's going up. And we disrupted the roadway there. And there is a sign about knee height, and that's my knee height, so that ain't too tall, okay, saying there's a bump. I just wondered if that could be raised a bit so that anybody approaching would see it before they hit it, because I got a complaint that they hit it before, so sure enough I went, and honestly, they were right. They said it's about knee high for UB, so that ain't too high. So if that could be raised to draw more awareness of that, because I don't think that's going to, I don't know when that's going to be repaired, but in the interim, if it could be put up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kenny. We'll have staff look at that first thing in the morning with regards to the sign, and with regards to the actual reinstatements, The contractor will be doing that in the next few days once he's finalized his last excavation cut there. So it should be reinstated within the next few days.
Okay. And my final comment, and Chris, like Councillor Butler's beside me telling me she's leaving, I'm going to be vacating this seat as well. And I still don't have a resolution for the one thing I've hounded you about constantly. Constantly. It's Calamity Street and the bridge abutment there. And you know I have. And I said, Chris, please give me a present and let that be my present, that gets fixed. So where are you there with it, Chris? Thank you.
This is through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kenny. We are still pursuing with Trillium Rail. We've got the region on board for their share. They've come to an agreement on what they want to do and what they're willing to pay for. So now we just have to get Trillium to undertake the work.
Like, can you give me a kind of a date so I can go there and look and have a party and yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kenny. We will give you plenty of warning to arrange a party.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Mrs. Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to, I believe this one might go to the CAO. I was called on the weekend and told that the city experienced a break-in at the Valet Soccer house. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. When we have criminal acts that happen, who actually gets the reports? Do you receive all of the reports from those?
So, through your worship to Councillor Demery, I don't know that there's a formal process in place because that one I was actually informed by a council member. I didn't have anybody make me aware, and I'm not sure if the director or manager in community services were made aware either. The city does have on-call foremen, supervisors who work through the night and are available on a call-out basis when there's an incident of that type. We also have many buildings that are monitored by alarm systems, and we have a triage list of staff that are called when by the alarm company when an alarm goes off. So what I do need to do is put a process in place that makes sure that the appropriate people are notified when there is an incident of that type. I did find out about that on Sunday. I did learn that there was some damage done to a washroom door. A little bit of material was set on fire, but I don't think it really turned into anything larger. My understanding from staff since then is that the police do have a person known to them who they are planning on, I guess, I don't know if the word is arrest, they're planning on bringing this person in. And so it is hopefully going to be quickly a closed case or a closed file. But the internal process of notifying me so that I can make sure that council's aware is something that I am going to put in place, talking with the city directors at our next directors meeting.
Thank you, because it is very frustrating as a councillor when the public tells me what happens in the city and asks me to comment on it, and I have not got a clue. So that is very frustrating. So if you could do that, I would very much appreciate it. And further to that, I had another person reach out to me, a pharmacy owner in town, and let me know that the police no longer respond to alarms because a lot of them go off falsely. So they're not responding anymore, and they're expecting the business owner should respond to the alarm and then call the police if there is a problem. And what he's telling me is, and I happen to fully agree with him on this, what he's telling me is that that's all fine and good if you're a mom and pop grocery store or something, and you know, there's not going to be dangerous goods being transported. But in the case of a pharmacy or a place that deals in anything that can be used as a weapon, that's a real problem. Mm-hmm. You're giving the thief an extra half hour, 45 minutes, however long it takes the owner to get there, that time to really make a good getaway with as much stuff as they want. And that translates to more crime on the streets, especially with those particular situations. So I wonder if we might be able to have some influence on, you know, police policies and procedures there, reach out and make a recommendation that it be changed in specific cases. I mean, I get why they're doing it, but this is something that, you know, we have enough drugs on our street, we have enough weapons on our streets, we don't need more. So this may be helpful.
So through your worship to Councillor Demery, it is true that the police board has approved a new response protocol, which is based on, as you've already alluded to, the vast number of alarms that turn out to be false alarms. The police will not respond to maybe we shouldn't be saying this on TV, that will not respond to the alarms. what most alarm companies are doing is actually providing a security service for a fee that will go out to your false alarm and then call the police if it's determined to be a true break-in. What I can do, because it's not the city that does this, but it does occur to us that there are certain types of building uses that probably would merit a police inspection. Doctor's office, pharmacy, anything where materials could be, I guess, more desirable for people breaking in. I'll talk to the police chief and over email or a letter from the city suggesting that maybe they want to, I guess, permit some exclusions to that rule for certain types of land uses, for certain types of buildings.
I would very much appreciate that, and I would also appreciate having the feedback, whatever it is that you receive from them, please.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so just a few more things, but this is all relating to the same sort of situation. When it comes to CCTV, I've had a lot of people reach out to me and ask about CCTV and whether the city's intending to have any involvement in that at all. It's kind of a two-part question here. One, I would hope that we would establish some kind of a program that we could work with the retail sector or the private sector and partner on something there to allow some kind of closed-circuit TV to, it doesn't do anything to prevent crime, but it certainly does a lot in identifying the culprits and being able to put them away and, to follow up on it. And that's a deterrent there. And also, do we have, as a city, do we have any closed-circuit TV now? And if are we intending to have more in the future or have any in the future?
Sure. Through your worship to Councillor Demery, I'll answer your questions in reverse order. We do have some closed circuit TV now, or some security cameras, for lack of a better term. We have cameras on City Hall, we have cameras at the Marina, and we have cameras at the Valley Health and Wellness Center in some of the public areas and some of the areas that the public isn't supposed to go. We do have plans to bring cameras into the library and I believe the museum. I can't think of anything that I'm forgetting. Sorry, the fire hall has closed circuit cameras. Skate park. So that's good. Operations center, newly built, has cameras inside the building and on the parking lot. So we do have plans to do a little bit more security. We do want to do more security at the Health and Wellness Center. There's been some reports of people accessing areas that they're not supposed to, or after hours that we want them in there. And of course, outside in the downtown area, which you're alluding to on your first part of your question, is something that we haven't really broached yet. Of course, we had the public meeting on September 10th, and the meeting sort of ended with a bit of a whimper because we had, it began with a bang. We had a lot of problems identified. We had a little bit of solutions identified, and we didn't have any staff direction given by council. So what I have done in terms of next steps is I am having a meeting with some concerned parties. I'm going to have Port Cares at the meeting because of their knowledge of some of the issues. I have invited Mr. Davies, who presented, because he's been leading the charge on this. I can't invite every single business owner in the municipality, but I think that that's a person who's already been involved in this. I've invited the police, myself, the ward councillors, and the mayor for this ward, the downtown, as well as the president of the BIA chair. This is only a first steps meeting. This isn't a working group. This isn't the final solution. This is a first steps meeting. And I think at that meeting we'll decide who else needs to be at the table, what needs to be added in terms of infrastructure. Of course, something like CCTV would come back to council as a budget request. Possibly there's other partners that would want to come forward with some funding, such as the BIA. And so that's an idea that we definitely would pursue. I think there is, I know you said there's no prevention, but I think depending on a person's personality, there is a little bit of prevention with a security camera. It's a little harder to throw the rock through the window when the camera's on, I hope. And so I hope that we could use closed circuit television, if it is eventually approved by council, as not only a deterrent, but a way of identifying, stopping some of this, and then catching people who continue to do this even though there are cameras.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there anyone monitoring these closed circuit TV?
Oh, through your worship, we record our film. We keep a couple of days of film on tape at or storage drives, and we only look back on them when there's an incident. So, for example, a car damaged in a parking lot, we could go back and review the tapes at that point.
Thank you. Any other questions of council? Yes, Natalia.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the CAO. Without divulging any information, if we're going to look at cameras, what length of time are we looking to store information? Months as opposed to days? I mean, because if something doesn't come forward immediately, how long are we going to retain?
I think he mentioned 3 days.
So yeah.
Well, I think longer than 3 days. We're
Through your worship to Councillor Elliott, I'm not sure, I call them tapes, and I guess there are storage media nowadays, right?
Yeah.
They're electronically stored. I don't know what our capacity is. I'd probably have to go back to IT and ask exactly what, how much we can keep, and I can maybe let council know by email or verbally at the next council meeting. These would, defer to the clerk's opinion on this, these would be municipal records. This would be something we own, a file, and it would be subject to the city's retention policy on how long we keep the things that we keep.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking like 3 days is a very extremely short period of time. I mean, you might not even get a request from the police department to see your tapes till 4, 5, 6, 7 days, and then the information's gone.
So through your worship to Councillor Elliott, I'm going to walk back the 3 days a little bit. I should have asked before I said, I don't know, I do know that I have asked for recordings in the past, and it's been too long. I don't know exactly what the number is, and I should probably not have said 3 days. Let me find out from IT. I'll let you know what our current practice is, and I'll let you know what our maximum ability is, our capability for stored data.
Thank you.
We're good? Are there any staff responses to previous councillor inquiries? Chief Cartwright.
Your worship, thank you. First thing I'll mention before I get into the things that are written down, if there's a fire of any sort in a municipal building, outbuilding, whatever, we need to be notified. Please make that part of a policy, just the staff that's sitting here. We do keep records. We do follow up investigations in conjunction with Niagara Regional Police, and sometimes they can put pieces of a puzzle together. So let us know, please, even if it's after the fact.
Thank you, Chief.
First thing I'm going to mention, if I could, Your Worship, is our open house. Our annual Fire Prevention Week open house is October 23rd. It'll start at 10 in the morning, that's a Saturday, and it will go through till approximately 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So please, for the public viewing, please make sure you attend. I just want to make mention of another thing that before I get to promoting our door-to-door campaign. At the last council meeting, there was a discussion. One of the people that made a presentation spoke about fire safety in 2 buildings, one being on Rosemount and one being on King Street in vulnerable occupancies. I just want to make a point of clarity with regards to fire safety in those 2 buildings, because there was a comment passed that they felt they were unsafe. I just want to reassure council and those watching TV tonight and listening to me that those buildings have been under our radar. Well, they're definitely on our radar, and we've had numerous contacts with the property owner and both those properties over the last number of years, to the point where there's been numerous charges laid in the past. There has been a property change, ownership change. There's charges against, there's orders been issued against the new owner, who is the old owner but under a different property name, company name. I will also tell council that those properties both are being billed significant amounts of money for false alarms in the tune of thousands and several thousands of dollars that if we don't get paid will be added to taxes. I will also allude to the fact that as far as we are concerned, because we're in there as often as what we are in both those buildings, they do meet the fire code and building code at this time. You need to know that effective January 1st, there's a new provincial requirement that those buildings both have to be sprinklered, and the owner has been notified that as of January 1st, those buildings, our expectations are they will be sprinklered. If they aren't, they will be charged. So there's a lot of things in play here. I just want to make sure council's aware of the fact that those two buildings certainly are very prominent in the fire department's activities in this city. So I just want to make sure you know that, and to anybody who's watching. The other issues that were raised by that particular individual are outside of us, and we really can't deal with any of those other comments. I would also like to say that our door-to-door campaign still is alive and well, and we're seeing a slow but sure progression in our percentages. I think I'd mentioned, I think we're up around 39%. I haven't checked as of today where we were over this last week or two, but nonetheless, we are moving forward, and we're getting more and more phone calls coming into the office with regards to coming to homes and making sure they are safe. So that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other responses, Mr. Aquilina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To you and to all of council, council will recall, based on the strat plan we had earlier this year, discussion about cannabis dispensary and sales. So upcoming in the paper, there is a notice that there will be a public meeting before council to deal with the definition of cannabis dispensary or retail sale, and to deal with growing of marijuana that is not medically related. So that is something that's coming to council soon.
Yeah, we don't have a date, Mr. Aquilina?
A recollection, I believe it's the first meeting in November.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from council? Yes.
Sorry, Your Worship, I'd just like to make a correction. My deputy just corrected me. The date for the open house is actually the 13th of October, not the 23rd. I apologize for that.
Thanks for the change. Okay. We'd like to move back to a consideration of items requiring separate discussion. Oh, Ashley, you had a question. You got to speak up here.
Thank
Throw
you, Mr.
something
Mayor.
at me. Go ahead.
I wanted to advise council that tomorrow the city will be issuing a request for proposals for the completion or to solicit interest from firms for the completion of a Parks and Recreation Master Plan with an anticipated project date or completion date of the end of February 2019.
Thank you. One last time, is there any other comments by staff? Being none, we'll move on to consideration of those items requiring separate discussion. Our first item is Councillor Demery, number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Corporate Services Department, Finance Division, Report 2018-133, Subject Municipal Officers Expense Allowance.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Kenny, discussion?
Yes,
Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've looked through this for quite some time. I saw lots of social media postings on it. It's been out there and people have been talking about it. When it comes right down to it, I would be asking for a deferral. I don't think that it's our place at this time to be deciding this matter. I really do believe that either the next council should decide it or the committee that is put in place to deal with electoral matters should be deciding it. I think that's where it should go, and if it's time sensitive, then maybe it's just the next council. But no matter what, it could still be decided before the first of the year if that's a time that it has to be done by. I'm not sure, maybe Mr. Sinnes could speak to that, but I would ask for a deferral to the next council.
Is there a seconder for that motion of deferral? Councillor Kenny? There's no debate on motions of deferral. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Question? Can we ask for comment from Peter?
No, it wouldn't. It's still, I'm asking for the deferral to matter. Yeah.
No discussion. You're seconding the motion, are you?
No, it's already
okay,
been
you're
seconded.
voting. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 2. Matter is deferred.
Thank you.
Item number 2. Alderman Danch.
This is for the conflict there. Fire and Emergency Services Department Report 2018-124, subject regulating the sale and discharge of fireworks.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Demery. Discussion? Councillor Danch?
Yeah, I was going to pull this myself, Chief. The charges that you've got there now, the $150 for the public display and $100 for retail, is that something new or has that been in place in the past?
Chief Cartwright.
Through your worship, to Councillor Dance, there is a fee within our fee schedule of $75, which was put in place in 2007. The discharge of fireworks is a new fee.
Councillor Dance.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at the fireworks that go off in the city. I mean, would the city be exempt for our canal days and things like that? New Year's Eve?
Your worship, it has been up until now, yes. And this bylaw would allow that.
And just because we're going into this new fee, and I know that Mike's done it for years where he's gone out to the sites after the fireworks to check to make sure that everything's, you know, according to what's supposed to go on there. So Shirkston Shores would be charged $150 10 times a year. The racetrack would be charged that money 3-4 times a year. Like, was that the way this would be, or would it be one charge for these people for the season?
Your worship, through yourself to Councillor Danch, the intent of this is that we would do an initial inspection, and that's what the fee would be charged for, the one inspection. Because Shirkston, for example, shoots from the same place every time, we would ensure that it is done safely the one particular time, the initial time, the same as we would for anybody else. Humberston's the same way. We do them once, so they'd be charged one fee for the year.
And that's honorable. The retail side of things, the $75, that's one that's been in place for years, has it? Since 2007?
We've got it available to us in the fee schedule, but quite frankly, we don't do inspections on a regular basis to the people that sell them. Periodically, we have, based on this new bylaw, it would be a requirement that we would have to do an annual inspection prior to them getting the permit to sell.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Danch. Any other? Okay, moving on. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Can I just see that hands again, please? All those in favor? Okay, it's carried. Thank you. Next is item number 7, Mr. Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Planning and Development Department Planning Division Report 2018-132, subject recommendation report on removing 60 Adelaide Street from the Municipal Registry of Heritage Properties.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Kenny? Discussion?
Thank you, Mayor. Just, I guess comments and questions would relate to this item 7 and 8, and I didn't want to pull 8 because it's the same thing. But both of the reports are recommending that these properties be delisted from the Registry of Heritage Properties. And it seems both of them for almost the same reasons for further development. But at some point in time, they met the criteria to go on the registry. So I'm just wondering, has the criteria of both of these houses mentioned in item 7 and 8, have they changed to such a point that the houses need to be demolished? Or do they not meet the criteria anymore? And I'll ask that to staff. I don't know who looks after that, Dan.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Elliott. When the registry was actually created, it was done way back when in the early 80s. And it was done by a group of students. And that registry is something that the Heritage Port Colborne Committee would refer to. And if there was any request to demolish, we would then go to the Heritage Port Colborne Committee. They would review the actual reasons why it was listed on the registry. Now the fact that we don't have a Heritage Port Colborne Committee at the moment, so staff took it upon itself to take a look at the actual property. And we have pictures of that, and it wasn't worthy of any consideration to keep that property as a heritage property.
Okay, so when they were first listed on the Heritage Registry, was it because of the physical nature of the building, or was it because of events that happened there, or who owned them, age, things like that? I mean, I hate to see us just destroy our heritage.
Through you,
Like,
Mr. Mayor.
we keep knocking down old buildings. That's the thing that I want, and it's like, the age of the building gets older, and we should preserve the heritage of the city. And I'm just wondering, you know, what has made us decide that this isn't worthy of keeping on the registry? Both
Through
properties.
Mr. Mayor to Councilor Eller, to answer your first question, there could be reasons why that property is on the registry. It could be because of the architectural style. It could be because the actual owner of the property and what relevance they had to the city. Were they someone that was the first to create a movement? Were they recognized historically of significance? That could be an also trigger as to why it was on the registry. This particular property, when you look at it, there was no architectural style that we saw that would be worthy of preservation. The foundation, it's fieldstone foundation, but there are other properties that have those, but it's tied to the actual person that owned the property and the fact that that person has some relevance. This particular property, we did not see any relevance based on that report that was compiled back in the 80s.
Okay, except for the person that lived there. That was the relevance that put it on the Heritage Registry in the first place. It was a person of significance to the city, nothing. I mean, there had to be the reason why it was on the registry.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Elliott, the only thing that I could see, it's an individual, John Kennard, and he was a harness maker.
Okay. And I guess the last question, are we actively seeking for members of that committee and just haven't had any apply?
Through you, Mr. Mayor to Councilor Elliott, I'll refer to the city clerk as to what is taking place because it is a committee of council.
Madam Clerk?
We have tried to recruit 3 times for committee members. We will be recruiting in November again with a host of other members for other citizen committees as well, so we hope we'll get a bigger uptake then.
Perfect.
John?
Nope, that's good. Thank you.
Madam Demery and Madam Butters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've actually sat on this committee before. Actually, Councillor Bodner was Mayor Bodner at that time. It was quite a ways back. But in any case, some of these properties were given the designation dependent on an architectural feature. And I think in this case, it was a stone cellar. Mm-hmm. But there's only, I think, 1, maybe 2 properties in town that were linked to a person. Mostly it was an architectural feature that would do it. I'm a little concerned with what's happening with our heritage as well. I really don't want to see anything destroyed. And the fact that we don't have a full and robust committee anymore, I'm wondering if it isn't time to ask possibly the museum if they might like to take this one over, because they would be very well suited and certainly prepared with the number of people they have working around them to do this kind of work. And normally, that's who we would refer to anyway. We go to them and speak to them to try to work out all the pieces of the designation. So I just, as a sidebar, I'd just like to ask that we do that.
Councilor Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilor Demery. That sounds like a really good suggestion because I hate the idea that the Heritage Committee is non-functional.
Yeah.
I think that's a really sad state of being in itself. The only thing I wanted to add was when those students did that registry, it was a very long time ago, as well as some things in the Heritage Act changed. So like cultural significance is a relatively newer thing in it because mostly it was dependent on architectural design and certain aspects more in that realm. So, yeah, I think if we can resurrect a more robust committee either through the museum or some method, because protecting our heritage is, I mean, once things are gone, they're gone forever.
Yeah, that's right.
So we don't want to lose anything that we can avoid losing.
Mr. Butler.
Mr. Mayor, I too sat on that committee, I think in the late 90s. And it actually is pretty darn interesting. It's a great experience. I'd encourage anybody that's interested in that to do it. Just so people don't think we're tearing down some buildings that have real significant meaning to the city. These are in pretty rough shape. And so I agree with staff that I can't see anybody that could put enough money into those to make them viable. And the one was built in 1880, so I would think that's probably partly why it got on the list, just because it was really old. And it hasn't gotten any better. It's just continuing to get worse. So I'd support taking these two off the registry so someone can do whatever they need to do with them. Thank you.
That's the end of the discussion. I suppose you have those who would prefer to let things just be until we can look into this further. Would want to make a motion to defer or move ahead? No. We're good? Okay. Yeah. Call for the vote on this recommendation. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Number 9, Mr. Elliott, is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's go down. Planning and Development Department, Planning Division, Report 2018-125, subject, Municipal Land Sale Policy.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Mr. Bonner, discussion?
Thank you, Mayor. Refer to page 69 of our package, and Dan will direct this towards you. Staff comments and discussion. The new policy captures all previous bylaws, provides clarity, and proposes the requirement that a $300 fee be submitted with an application form, Appendix B, with it for any request to purchase municipal land. The $300 application fee would then be deducted from the purchase price and would be forfeited if a purchaser decides to back out of the purchase or if the land is not approved to be sold. And I guess my question is, we all want to be open for business and we all want people to come in and take a look at land in town. Why did you deem the $300 application fee is necessary? Have we had it in the past that people have backed out of deals? Is it a repetitive thing? And the part that struck me where it says, or if the land is not approved to be sold. So you would forfeit the $300 if the land is not approved to be sold. So can you explain, A, how you come up with the $300 fee and why, and explain if the land is not approved to be sold?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Elliott. Yes, I have had an experience recently that there have been a lot of inquiries and a lot of time spent dealing with the prospective purchaser. That went on for about a year's time. And then I received word from the prospective purchaser that he no longer wished to purchase the property. So for that year's time of staff, there was no cost recovery. So it was as if I was donating time to this individual. Unfortunately, it never materialized. The approved by council, because certain times you have a request to purchase property, but ultimately it's council's decision whether it's to be disposed of. People that make the inquiry, there is still staff time spent to deal with that inquiry, whether it be through engineering operations, city treasury, obviously planning and development. There is a process that we have in place. We've never recovered any costs to actually bring a report eventually to council for consideration. So this is an opportunity to, I hate to use the word tire kickers, but it's to kind of weed out for people that really are just kicking tires. They really have no interest to pursue development of property, and staff time has been invested and there's no cost recovery. So the $300 would be seen as there is a serious interest to move forward, cover the staff's time to process, The $300 would then be deducted off the purchase price if this gets approved by council. If it doesn't get approved by council, that $300 would be non-refundable.
Okay, so can you go over the part that says if the land is not approved to be sold? That's a council decision?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Elliott, yes, absolutely. Would be a council decision to dispose of any property.
So if it's deemed not approved to be sold, then the potential purchaser loses their $300?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Elliott, that is correct.
So council decides not to sell the property and the purchaser loses their $300?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Elliott, that is correct.
That doesn't make sense. We're offering a piece of property for sale and somebody's going to put an offer in it and the council deems it not to be for sale. Why would the purchaser lose their $300 because council said no?
Through you, Mr. Mayor to Councilor Elliott, this pertains to property that we receive unsolicited requests to purchase. This is not dealing with property that we sell or looking for people to purchase. Right. This is dealing with people that are requesting to have property that is unsolicited by the city staff. Individuals that are looking to purchase property that ultimately has to be approved by council. This is not for municipal property that the city itself is looking to dispose of.
So they're looking for a piece of municipal property that we deemed we're not going to sell. That we haven't got for sale.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. If the land is not land that is marketed by the city for sale, these are for any property that is an unsolicited request to purchase, which we receive. And eventually, if it goes forward, it goes to council for their consideration.
Right, so I'm still trying to figure out why you would lose $300 if you gave an unsolicited offer and council said no. That's the end of it. Why would you lose $300 on that?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Elliott, because of the staff time involved to make that determination that it's not recommended for sale.
I can't support that. And it's interesting that, you talk to real estate agents, a lot of real estate agents drive people around and have them kicking tires on houses and don't charge for it. And we're trying to promote people to be interested in town. And your words that you're trying to dissuade tire kickers from coming. I'd encourage people to come and kick our tires. I'd encourage people to come in and see what we have for sale. And if you work with them a little bit and it doesn't work out, there's always somebody else. If there hasn't been a pattern developed where the same person comes back over and over again and is looking at this piece of property and that piece of property, and that's why we're doing this, I could understand that. But if it's somebody just comes into town and is looking for a piece of property, puts an offer on it, and then says, you know what, it didn't work out, I'm going to back out of the deal, to lose $300, while it's not a significant amount of money, we try to promote ourselves as to be open for business. Come and see us. And this, to me, sends out a little bit of a message that, you know what, yeah, if you're just kicking tires, don't bother us. Sometimes that turns into a big deal. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does, but it's worth the risk. And that's the only reason that I pulled it, is because it just seems like it's a flag that goes up that says, you know what, here's another little roadblock on the way. You want to be open for business? Be open for business. Don't throw a roadblock out.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Mr. Butler.
So Dave and I had a little discussion on this, and I see now where you're saying it's unsolicited bids. Somebody wants to buy a piece of our park, or I don't know, some piece of property that we had no intention maybe of selling anyways, but once they inquire about it, you got to do some work for it, and then you really have to have council say, no, we're not going to sell it, right? You can't just decide you're going to sell it without council's yes or no. So that puts a little spin on it, because everything we offer for sale, we want to sell. So I'd be interested in hearing any other discussion on this, because I'm not so against the $300 now that I heard the unsolicited part. Thanks.
Councilor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm intending to agree with Councillor Elliott. Mr. McElreena, you work for us, so if somebody comes in and says they're interested in a property and it takes a little bit of your time, I consider that part of your job for the city of Port Colborne. Time is time. You get paid for your time, whether unsolicited or not. I believe, as Councillor Elliott said, let them kick all the tires they want. Maybe we'll get a sale on property that we never even thought we could sell. So the fee of $300, I think, is bogus. It's another money grab. It's another tactic by the city to not put up a welcome mat. Come on. I totally do not support charging $300. You're already being paid. Whether it's your time in your minutes or whatever, to say it goes to that individual, no. I won't be supporting it either, Councillor.
Thank you, Mrs. Kenny. Mr. Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. This is a little bit of a tough one. I don't disagree with what Councillor Elliott has said, but on the other hand, we have a list of surplus lands that have been decided that these are the lands that we do intend to sell. So there's a list there. We're not talking about applying $300 to that list, I would hope. This $300 would only apply to lands that would not be considered for sale, that people are coming in and they want to explore that option. And whether or not Mr. Aquilina is being paid, this is taking away that paid time from other work that is really valuable and could be being done by people who are just window shopping. And I don't know about you, but I have a daughter who could spend days window shopping and never buy. It can happen. In the meantime, that ties up a lot of time and a lot of resources. So although I don't think $300 is much of a deterrent to anything, I still think that it does make the statement, you have to be serious, put a few dollars down, do it. It's not a big deal. If there's someone looking to buy land and they're put off by $300, I don't think that someone could have made the purchase anyway. So I don't think it's a big deal. I do have a little bit of a concern around the piece where coming to council and council deciding no, it shouldn't be done. If council makes a decision like that, then I think the $300 should go back to the person who put it down. I really do think in that situation it should, but only in that situation. So that's just where I'm on with it. I agree with all but the end part where council approved lands, or council does not approve rather.
Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Dan. So could you give me an idea of kind of, if you have an idea of the percentage of time that you've spent with tire kickers in the last 6 months, or would you say it's like a 10% of your time, or more or less, or yeah? Wondering if this is an ongoing occurrence.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Butters. I don't want to say too much because all the decisions that council makes are in closed session, but there's been a certain situation that there's been more than one report that has made its way to council for council's determination. That requires a report every time. Then you're reviewing the different plans to develop. That takes time. It's something that, if council does not want to have cost recovery and council is okay with having prospective purchasers not cover the time of staff, because as Councillor Demery had pointed out, my responsibilities are not solely dealing with land. So that takes away time that are dealing with planning applications. So that answers your question, Councillor Butters. A lot of my time is spent. I'd want to use that particular instance that occurred within the past year, because if I did, I probably spent a good solid week of my time if I was to calculate the time that I spent dealing with the review of the development plans and actually meeting with him in person.
other comments? Councilor Danch.
I got to go along with Angie in what she said there, through you, I'm sorry. Because, I mean, I think she said it the right way, that if we come back and say, no, we're not going to sell it, we'll give you back your $300. But if you want to play the game, then play the game. Dave would know this question. You want to buy a house, you generally have to put down something to get it started, do you not? You're going to put some money forward, or?
Yeah, well, I'll answer through you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Danch, yeah, you put down a deposit, but if anything happens, it's fully refunded. Whether you back out of the deal or the seller backs out, you get all your money back. And you don't have to pay anything to the realtors for their time or their effort. They may take you to 15, 20 houses, and that's their dime.
And through you, I refund people. I like to say not every day, but I do refund people, and majority of times we don't charge you for taking our time. But I don't know, we'll see what a show of hands does.
Well, Mrs. Demery, do you wish to make an amendment to this recommendation?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I would like the recommendation to go through as written, with the exception of, I would like to have the $300 application fee would be forfeited if the purchaser decides to back out of the purchase. That would stay in. Or if the land is not approved to be sold, that would come out. So if we could take, if the land is not approved to be sold, to come out of that, out of the motion, then that would be fine. That would be the amendment I'd like to make.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councilor Danch? Call for a vote on the amendment. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Amendment carries. Next will be the recommendation as amended. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3. I would vote for Mrs. Demery, or with Mrs. Demery's. Yeah, I support the amendment as the recommendation as amended. Okay, that would appear that's the end of our consideration of items. Are there any notices of motion? There being none, I call for a motion of adjournment. Moved by Councilor Kenny, seconded by Councilor Danch. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. This meeting is concluded, and we'll now go on to the regular meeting of council 24/18, held today, Monday 24th. It's a regular meeting of council, and call this to order. Are there any addendum items, Madam Clerk?
No, there are no addendum items this evening.
I entertain a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councilor Bodner, seconded by Councilor Danch. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any disclosures of interest? Yes, Mr. Bodner?
Item 2, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other? There being none, it shall be so indicated. Number 5, adoption of minutes of the regular meeting of council 20-18, held on September 10th, 2018. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Determination of items requiring separate discussion. Councilor Elliott?
Item 2 for the conflict.
Thank you. Approval of items not requiring separate discussion. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Consideration of items requiring separate discussion. That's item number 2. Mr. Elliott.
Yep, Fire and Emergency Services Department report 2018-124, subject regulating the sale and discharge of fireworks.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Councilor Danch. Call for a vote or discussion. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Proclamations. English as a second language, the week of October 28th to November 3rd, 2018. Call for a vote in favor. Yeah. Oh. Sure, I will. Butters and Demeray. God bless them. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Minutes of boards, commissions, and committees. Minutes of the Canal Days Advisory Committee of May 1st, 2018. And minutes of the Port Colborne Active Transportation Advisory Committee meeting of the June 12th. I call for a motion to accept those minutes in bulk. Moved by Councilor Dan, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor? It's carried. Bylaws, Madam Clerk.
So there's a number of bylaws this evening, 6613, 68-18, being a bylaw for prohibiting and regulating the sale of fireworks and the setting off of fireworks in the city of Port Colborne, and to repeal bylaw number 2708-2592. Bylaw 6614, 6918, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 89-2000, being a bylaw regulating traffic and parking on the city roads, Davis Street. 6615-70-18, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 89-2000, being a bylaw regulating traffic and parking on city roads, Elm Street. Bylaw 6616-71-18, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 4310-46-02, a bylaw prescribing on and off street parking for persons with disabilities within the city of Port Colborne. The bylaw listed as 6617-72-18 will be coming back with the changes. Bylaw 6, so the new numbers will be 6617-73-18, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 6131-97-14, being a bylaw to impose development charges for the city of Port Colborne. Bylaw 6618-74-18, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy fire chief. And bylaw 6619-75-18, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of council of the corporation of the city of Port Colborne at its special and regular meetings held on September 24th, 2018.
Is there a motion to pass those bylaws in bulk? Moved by Councilor Demeray, seconded by Councilor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. At this point, I entertain the motion of council to go into closed session. That council do now proceed into closed session in order to address the following matters. Minutes of the closed session portion of the following council meeting, October 27th, 2018. Planning and Development Department Bylaw Enforcement Division Report 2018-130 concerning an update with respect to ongoing property. Investigations pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392B. Personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and subsection 2392E. Litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. C. Planning and Development Department Planning Division Report 2018-134. Concerning an appeal under the Planning Act to the local planning appeal tribunal of committee or of adjustment decision B04-17-PC related to 2229 Highway 3 East, subsection 2392E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Number D, verbal report from Tammy Morton, a Human Resources Coordinator, concerning the performance appraisal of the Chief Administrative Officer pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392B, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employee. Could I have a motion? Moved by Councilor Butters, seconded by Councillor Bodnar. All those in favor? Carried. We'll move into closed session, please.